We're here now. What's going on, everybody? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, coming to you again with another episode of Kick Your Butt Out. Before I get going into the content and introducing my special guest, I want to first and foremost say what I always say every time because I want you to get this in here so that you can start to incorporate this into your lives. And that is, if you're looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. Just that simple. So, with that being said, it is my honor, privilege, and blessing to be able to introduce this special guest on this week's episode of Kick Your Butt Out. This guy's phenomenal. This guy has greatness. This guy has extraordinary potential inside of him. And he's definitely a light in the dark world of mental illness. Ladies and gentlemen, Kick Your Butt Out viewers, let me introduce to you
Thank
Rich
you.
Vysion. What's going on,
Good,
bro? How
my
you
brother. How are
doing?
you? Thank you
What's
for
going
having
on?
me.
So, and I'm well. I'm well. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, brother. So introduce the world, the YouTube world, to Rich Vysion and who Rich Vysion is.
Yes, absolutely. Rich Vision is a mental health advocate and recording artist whose purpose is to bridge the gap between music and mental health, and also to remind people that they're not alone in their struggles because a lot of people feel like they are alone, and I once felt that way. But now, being in a lot of different communities, I realized that I do have some value to offer to other people through my music and through my creative art and my poetry as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate the fact that you are a voice, in for this because this mental illness has been overlooked for so many years, right? Because lots of us come from a culture that didn't even know anything about mental illness, and we weren't even allowed to speak, so we couldn't tell people what was wrong or what was going on. uh, TD Jakes said it like this, and especially with men. He said it like this. He said, "We tell men to shut up, and then we want them to talk, and then we wonder why men are so isolated and go into shells." Because when I was young, as a kid, I say it all the time. Whether it's in this platform or when I'm working with clients, I was told to shut up before I give you something to cry about. I was taught that men don't cry, toughen up, and the only emotions that I knew to express was anger and rage. I didn't know anything else, and so I really applaud you, brother, for being an advocate and the voice, you know, for mental wellness, overcoming that mental illness and mental abuse. Um, so speaking of TD Jakes, I had the privilege of being at his leadership conference this past May. It was in Orlando, Florida, and he had this one keynote speaker. She has a powerful book. I would strongly encourage you to check it out. It deals with mental illness. It deals with mental health. It deals with mental abuse. Her name is Dr. Anita Phillips. The name of her book is The Garden Within. That's the name of her book. It's called The Garden Within. And her name is Dr. Anita Phillips. Powerful lady. Wonderful ministry. She's a spokesperson just like you for the mental illness and the mental health. And so, reason why I mentioned her name is because when she did her keynote, one of the first things she said gave me revelation, gave me information that I didn't even know. She said it like this. She said, everyone has mental health. Not everyone has mental
Mm,
illness. And Yes, yes. Same thing you just said. That's what I said.
Mm,
Wow, that's deep. Didn't never look at it from that standpoint. However, I understood what she meant. And that's thinking about that and being able to have this privilege of doing this podcast with you. I was inspired to title this episode of Kick Your Butt Out, but
mm.
mental illness,
Oh yeah.
right? That's the title of this episode, but mental illness.
Mm,
So when it came to your mental illness, Rich, if you were willing to share, what are some of the buts that kept you in relationship with mental
mm.
illness? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. I will preface it by saying I was never diagnosed with mental illness, and I'm very grateful for that. And I also know that um, I did have the ideation for mental illness. So just like TD Jakes says on video about at times we think ourselves into depression, and that's what happened to me, unfortunately. And for me, that's kind of like the turning point in my life when I was like, okay, therapy is important. And I didn't really know that therapy was something that in a sense I needed at the time, because of the fact that I was so wrapped up in um again, like you said about, oh, I'm a man, you're not supposed to be emotional. And I had so much pride in that sentiment that I didn't want to reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I would rather suffer in silence behind a closed door than to shed my demons. And it took really um a couple of suicide attempts, and also me, you know um almost swallowing lead, or ammonia, to get the help that I needed. You know what I mean? And to fast track, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? There's something deep rooted that is not resolved. You know what I mean? And that was like a big mental health scare for me.
Yeah.
And I believe it was last year or the year before, when I had that mental health scare with the ammonia. So that was like, that was really big for me, because it took that moment, being on the brink of suicide, to realize, like, okay, like, I literally almost like shut down like my whole dreams and my ambitions and everything music related that I aspired to do, because I thought myself into this depression. Again, not diagnosed. I really, a lot of the stuff that was imposed on me, in regards to self-limiting beliefs, I internalized everything. And there was one morning I was just meditating on the stuff. Oh, you're not good enough to be a rapper. Where's your music that you're never gonna come out with? XYZ. And I'm like, wow. And it, to the point where I was spiraling. I was literally in my room staring at the ceiling, and I was thinking, like, why am I still here? If all I'm gonna meditate on is not feeling like I'm good enough for my own career field that I'm passionate about. And I was in my room with, shades on, and I remember my sister just knocking on the door, like, "Are you okay? You're quiet." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then she ended up just coming in the room. And she's like, "You sure you're fine?" And I was just like, in my head, I'm like, I don't want to see me crying, because I was just like in my head. And then, it was just at a point where I just rushed into the kitchen, and I'm just like, I ended up grabbing ammonia, and she struggled to get it on my hand. She was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm gonna tell your mother." And I'm like, I didn't even know what was going on, because all I could remember saying was like, "Oh, nobody cares, XYZ. I'll be just another dead rapper on the news." And then I was like, and I wasn't conscious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wasn't like, I didn't know what I was saying at the moment. And then she was like, she got me to the point where she was able to grab it from me. And then I didn't know that there were people coming to see me, during that moment, like to make sure that I was okay, or because I'm assuming that calls were made, and after that fact that happened, and there were people who
Mhm.
were my friends were there, like reminding me, like, no, you're here for a reason. Like, I'm here for you. I'm supporting you. Don't do
Mhm.
this to yourself. And
Yes,
they really
yes,
were gun ho and
yes.
getting me to, like, okay, do you need to go to a hospital? Do you, like, let's get this help, And then I was like, wow, I'm so grateful for people in my corner, because at the same time, like, I wasn't in my right mind at the time when I was going through that mental health scare. So for me, like, that mental illness is like, a lot of people have it, and I'm grateful that, um I wasn't diagnosed with anything of what mental illness, but I do know, um when the emotion of, like, not feeling enough, or feeling like, I need to cry myself to sleep to feel better about myself. And I know exactly how that feels. So I could definitely relate to people who are, what I mean, dealing with that, because it's a real thing and it's a real emotion. And I do share a lot of that in my music as well, to enlighten other people. Like, this is such a real topic, and it's not like a taboo topic. It's so universal. Everyone's dealing with it behind a closed door. And I always advocate, get the help that you deserve. I did do therapy, and it did help me. And unfortunately, the person wasn't the right fit, in regards to, my standards. But that doesn't mean that I didn't try to get the help or try to benefit
Right.
from that transaction, in the sense of that mental transaction, um for lack of better words. And it took a lot of self work,
Mhm.
healing, ordering self-care books,
Mhm.
motivational books. There was even a time when my one of my friends from Zoom, we watched this video together called Your Reality. It really saved my life, because I didn't know up to that point, when I was gonna get to issues with a mentor, um, that was mentally abusive, that I was gonna overdose and swallow lead. After the fact that I had a conversation with my mentor. So all of these things leading up, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? It really was, like a better verse, like it was like a foundation to fast track my healing journey, because I'm like, oh, this was a mental health scare, and this was a mental health scare. I'm like, okay, what's the issue? What's the vote? And how do I pull resources, whether from Zoom or through a book or from other resources, to fast track on my healing,
Mhm.
wellness journey?
Hey man, man, listen, wow, that was a book for it. I mean, like, wow, it was so much meat and nutrients in what you just said. Uh, just listening to you talk, it made me think about my story, because some of the things that you just talked about, it mirrored me. You know what I mean? And some of the struggles that I had, in my journey, and finding out that I had some mental illnesses going on. The other thing that you said that I really appreciated, you talked about what TD Jake said in terms of us talking ourselves into these messes, right? Uh, one of the other things that he said that kind of made me think when you said that. He said, uh, uh, the things that we do or the things that we believe about ourselves, more often than not, somebody told it to us first. And then we started to believe it and incorporate it into our lives. My last podcast, and then I'll move on. My last podcast, I talked about uh, uh, we running around here. We talking about we believe in God and we have faith in God. We talking about all of the blessings and the mercies and the grace and all of these wonderful things that He's bestowing upon us. But we'll fix our mouths at the same time to talk about we having a bad day. God doesn't make bad days, right? God don't make bad days. Every day He made is good. And I'm saying that to say that when we heard somebody say bad day, bad day, bad day, and then we started to speak that to ourselves. and then we start having these bad days. So I totally agree with you what you were saying, how we talk ourselves into, because there was many days I did it, right? And by the grace of God, with and I appreciate that you talked about the ways that you was able to kick your butt out. You know, when it came to mental illness, you talked about the books, you talked about the attempts at therapy, you talked about the circles and the Zoom calls and the movies and the videos that you watched that assisted you, and just being around people that said that you are enough. You know what I mean? There is greatness in you, being around people that poured into you. Dude, those are some of the ways that you were able to kick your butt out as it related to but mental illness going on. So wonderful stuff. Wonderful, man.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, this is awesome. This is greater than I
Okay.
thought. So let's talk about some of your songs, because I listened to some of your
Okay.
songs and I'm blown away. And so you've titled some of your
Okay.
songs, one of them is Mental Abuse. Here is one that really resonates with me. Watch
Mm.
this. I forgive you for me. That resonates with me in so many ways, because let me a part of my journey, I remember when God came to me, excuse me, and told me, in order for you to move forward, you got to forgive XYZ, ABC. You got to forgive all of these people. And here's my rationalization. Well, some of them dead, right? And God said it doesn't matter. You have to forgive them, and the forgiveness is for you. So this title, I forgive you for me, and just the lyrics behind the song, and just the passion in the song, the everything about it, it really touched me and got me in an emotional state from a joy standpoint, not an emotional state from a sad standpoint. So I appreciate I forgive you for me. And another one of the hits that I listen to, I'm on the other side of mental abuse. Talk to me about what those songs, what inspired the titles and or the lyrics. Talk to me and the Kick Your Butt Out viewers about what inspired mental abuse. I forgive you for me, and songs like I'm on the other side of mental abuse.
So to
Talk to
give it
us.
context, I ended up initiating a text at 3:46 in the morning because I was severely depressed. One of my one of the girls from a class, the music class I was in, was asking for some video that I was doing behind the scenes with a vocal arranger on my music, and it was to the point where I felt it was mentally abusive because it was like nonstop. I'm like, why are you asking for footage that's supposed to be between me and this person? And then I was confiding in my mentor at the time to hold space for me because I didn't know how to deal with it. And then I got the "you're overreacting. Do you know what time it is?" And that's gaslighting, and I didn't know what that was. Um, and
Mhm.
then I'm like, oh wow, so my feelings are not validated because I decided to text you at this time in the morning. I was told it was a boundary. And because of that, after
Yes.
that conversation, and then I told my friend about it, she was like, okay, let's see this movie. Then approach her in this type of way. And what happened once I recited the letter, she was like, "Oh no, you're pointing blame at me? No, 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 no." And then it's like you have to take accountability because you're the one who was sounded desperate, XYZ at the time. And it's kind of like it's hard to deal with that because at the same time it's like you want someone to hold space for you, but then it's like they're kind of shoving you and saying that you're overreacting, and it's like, are you gonna hold
Mhm.
space for me and let me kind of like vent, or are you gonna tell me that um I can confide in you at any time, but then it's like you put parameters on the time.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Because I was told
Yes.
an email was more
Yeah.
appropriate. And I get it, and I get it. But at the time I didn't, in my head I wasn't okay. Um I was honestly like crying and I didn't know how to deal with it. So that's the reason I decided to reach out. Um And then fast forward to after the falling out with the mentor, we didn't click. Like there was times when those where she would be more controlling. She would want to micromanage emails, you know what I mean? My personal emails, which made no sense to me, because like how you gonna tell me what to write in the email because I didn't mention your name? So it was like a couple of different signs that I didn't really see until after I watched the movie with my friend, that okay, she was actually being a little bit controlling and toxic to the point where I didn't really know that I was being deflated or discarded. Because after
Mhm.
that we just literally just stopped talking. I stopped taking the um working with this person, and we just had a falling out. We never spoke again. So
Okay.
that situation, that gaslighting situation that I had with her at 3 in the morning, was what inspired the whole project, because I didn't know that mental abuse was so prevalent until I saw the reality on gaslighting film on YouTube with my
Mhm.
friend. And then the I forgive you part came in when I went for me, when I went to see I went to a gig, and one of the girls who was there were women. She was going ladies, she was going through domestic violence and also verbal mental abuse as well with her partner. And the music was so cathartic and it was just so powerful. And I listened to not only her live, but I had bought her CD because her story really resonated. Even though I didn't go through domestic abuse, I did go through emotional and mental. And I was like, wow, how can you get to that point where you actually forgive someone who did that to you? Because it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is she standing here going through all that and telling us about the 5 stages of grief? You know what I mean? In my head, I'm
Yeah.
like, what? That sounded in my head crazy.
Yeah.
Until I actually went and listened to the music, I'm like, oh, I get it. Oh wow. She actually, and because even when I spoke to her, she was like, I'm not saying in my songs that it's not okay what happened to me. I'm just saying for me it's like I'm not gonna forget what happened, but I will, in a sense, move past this so that
Right.
I can get the help that I deserve, so I can take the
Yeah.
therapy and get the healing. And I'm like, wow, because honestly, that was so empowering and liberating. I'm like, wow, and I'm
Yes.
here and back of my head, behind the scenes, harboring resentment for my mentor,
Mhm.
and I was like, that doesn't align with the positive aura that you exude. What's going on? You, it's just,
Right.
it's a
Right.
contradiction. So I had to really look at myself in the mirror and say, are you, are you really gonna just continue to stay angry at this person, um, or you gonna forgive them and wholeheartedly do it, but also forgive yourself and not hold that shame over your head like a badge of honor? And I
Yeah.
decided to say, "Wait a minute. Yeah, yes, I know it happened. I know it's not okay, and I also accept that it happened. And it's also like, oh, okay, it's healing knowing that like I could forgive myself, because a lot of people don't know, which I don't often share. I held a lot of shame in my heart because I didn't know how if people would believe me, which is the reason why
Mhm.
I struggled to put out this record to the song, because a lot of people, I forgive you is very common, but not a lot of people put that for me. You know what I mean? There's a different connotation towards that, because
Yeah.
again, you
Yeah.
could forgive someone and now forgive yourself, and then you can forgive that person and also forgive yourself. And even at the end of the song, I mentioned, I forgive me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just as like as a cliffhanger to say, I do forgive you, and I also forgive myself for going through that situation and not holding myself hostage. because I went through that issue.
Yes. Amen to that. Amen to that. Man, I appreciate the information that you're giving, man, because
Thank you.
it is so valuable, Rich, the information that you're giving. Because, one of the things that you said made me think back to some of the things that I have conversations around with my clients. And one of the things is the worst thing that you can do to a person is invalidate their feelings or invalidate their experiences. And so, when people tell me I'm overreacting, you invalidating how I feel or what my experience is. And that's one of the worst things that you can do. I remember people saying, "Oh man, it ain't that serious." You invalidate. I'm explaining to you my experience and my feelings, and you just told me it's not important. You know what I mean? And so that's ingredients for me to shut down, right? And not say anything else. Okay, well, it doesn't even make sense to talk about this because these are the reactions that I'm going to get. These are the responses that I'm going to get. So I'll just keep it to myself and end up in the terrible situation, in the worst situation than what it was before I even had this conversation with this person. And the thing that I understand the most in my journey is that you have to you have to make sure that this is the right person or people or circle to be able to express what it is that you need to express to. And God will reveal it to you. He would definitely reveal, oh, yep, these are the people that you're supposed to drop that off with. Or these are or right now, no,
Mm,
this ain't the time to talk about that. You know what I mean? And so those are some of the good things that help me to kick my butt out as well. Another thing you talked about with the forgiveness piece, and I always say it like this when it comes to my forgiveness, because I understood that the forgiveness was for me and that I had to forgive me as well. One of the things that I've learned is that it was harder to forgive me than it was to forgive other people. That's number one. And the other thing is what forgiveness means for me, that, because people, you don't forget. You're not supposed to forget. You don't forget. What it does mean is that even though the scars and the wounds may still be there, they don't hurt no more. That's what forgiveness is. You know, I might not ever forget. It don't hurt no more though. I'm in an okay place now. I can think about what you did or what I did or what I didn't do or what you didn't do, and it doesn't hurt me when I think about it. That's what forgiveness is for me, and that's one of the things that I try to teach as I work with clients, in the field that I work in. So man, all this information is good. I want to get to this another one of the points. And thank you so much for sharing the inspiration behind the songs and the lyrics and the titles. Wonderful information. I'm praying that somebody
absolutely.
who's going to see this recording is going to really get something out of it. Now, me myself, I'm a person, excuse me, who's in a recovery from mental illness too, right? That's one of the reasons why I teach that recovery is about so much more. When people think about recovery, they think about drugs, alcohol, and all that. It's way beyond that, right? I'm in recovery from mental illness too, right? And so I've been around many circles and many groups and just environments that are designed to help us get well, designed to help us get better. And one meeting in particular I was in, this one individual, he stood up and he said this. He said, if you don't tell on it, it'll tell on you. And so when I think about that, what made you decide to tell on it?
Mm, that's powerful because I kept telling myself like my story has value and it will set someone else free from their mental traumas. And then while I was thinking about this, while also contemplating suicide, I was like, I need to be here for my family. I need to be here for my family. I need to be here for my family. And then I'm like, how do I use all of this stuff that's happened to me to create a new narrative? Because at the time, I was, when I was doing a lot of inner work, I would watch all these motivational videos. And when I started writing those
Yes.
songs, and I started feeling like I'm actually speaking my truth, because it was something that happened to me, and I wasn't just picking it up from the sky like, oh, and then I also realized that this record is very um not only therapeutic, it was also telling of like some of the things that like we go through as human beings, like not feeling worthy. And even if those people who haven't gone through like the mental abuse, um there's I feel very inclined in a sense to say that there's a song for everyone, and that
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
the collection of songs,
Uh-huh.
because again we all go through those experiences, not feeling enough. There's times where we're in the healing process, we're just like, okay, I do forgive you, I forgive myself too. And I also thought about like, how can I um help other people see their circumstances differently? Because when I was going through it, I only saw one dimensional. I saw myself as a victim, and I put those victim pants on very proudly, I might say, until I said, you know what I mean, I'm done. I'll quit.
Yep.
But as funny as that sounds,
Yeah.
it really was. It took a while, but I'm like, okay, this is not the narrative God created for me, and I really believe that, because that's why I always say like in my music, um or just in general, like my music, although my music I write for me, it's also I write for other people, because a lot of people um are vicariously living through my lyrics, and people have told me that too,
Yeah.
like that my lyrics are helping them to get through their days. And I was like, wow, I didn't really know that my music has so much impact, until I started putting it out there. So I'm just grateful, very grateful for the story and what happened, because
Mhm.
I was to myself that mental abuse happened for me, not to me. It was for
That's
a
right.
story, a narrative, and for someone else's higher purpose, and it serves as someone else's lifeline who's struggling with those same issues and feel like they have no hope. Like my encouragement is like for people to hear the record and not see it um as a, oh, this happened to me, nothing's gonna get better. It's like, no, this record is very empowering and liberating. And it's like, that's the reason why I also
Yes.
named it On the Other Side of Mental Abuse, because it's like a lot of people don't know that there's also a healing side to it. Although we
Yes.
have that those darkest days, there's also light at the end of the tunnel. Once we start getting the help that we deserve, we start reaching out to people. And I'm so grateful that I did reach out to certain people, because it also informed my story and how important sharing the story is in society in general.
Right on, brother. Um, lastly, before we go, is there any closing comments that you want the audience to hear?
If you're listening, my encouragement is to keep going and to know that you are enough. Please don't give up on your life, and that you are here for a reason, and I really mean that wholeheartedly. Your story is someone else's lifeline, whether you believe it or not. There's someone who is lost, and you are their light in their darkest places. So please don't devalue your self-worth, because you are enough regardless of what people say.
Yes. Man, right on, Rich. Right on, Rich. And I want to say this. I want to thank you so much, Rich. This
Thank you.
is definitely a blessing. It has so much fruit and meat and nutrients in this. Anybody can be able to listen to this and grow from it. Uh, I want to say this to all of the listeners out there. What you just heard Rich Vision and myself say is that mental illness or mental abuse does not have to be a life sentence, and it doesn't have to be a death sentence. Mental wellness is available, and there are many ways, many people, and many places that's out there that you can tap into in order to get it. Rich Vision, myself, we're two people who will gladly assist you in any way that we can, any way that you would allow us to get out of that mental illness and that mental abuse to a space and a place of being mentally healthy. Lastly, are there any resources, Rich, that you want to share, that you want to mention, that somebody could tap into, and then we'll get out of here.
Yes, the one resource that comes to mind is 988. That's the hotline for suicide prevention. So please tap in 988 988 988. That's also the number I recite in mental abuse because again, you don't
Yes.
know what someone's
Yeah.
going through really, and who may need the resources. So be a resource for that person. Tap in, please tap in to any one of us because I also have resources as well on my side of mental health resources that are very beneficial, that are people who will help you to get to the other side. Again, don't do this alone. There's people out there willing to talk you off the off the ledge. So please tap in.
Yes. 988, y'all. 988. Um, it's been an honor and a privilege and a blessing, Rich Vision, to have you on here.
Thank you.
Um,
Appreciate you.
People out there in the YouTube world, in the kick your butt out world, please take advantage of this. Utilize the things that we talked about and the tools that we talked about, because again, if you don't tell on it, it'll tell on you. This is an opportunity and a way to kick your butt out when it comes to mental illness, so that you can get to a space of mental wellness. Um, so this is the end for us. This is our time. Uh, until next time, be well, do the next right thing. God bless you all. And as usual, you either sitting on your butt or you standing on your why. This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, with Rich Vision, my special guest. Thank you so much. God
Thank you.
bless you
Appreciate you.
all. We'll see y'all next time. Be well. Peace.